Hello and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Today we're going to be talking about an album by the Moody Blues, a band that some people may remember. Most of those who remember them would probably know them for the album Days of Future Past, in particular the song Nights in White Satin. That album was a very revolutionary album. It was considered one of the first, if not the earliest, concept albums. It combined the familiar 60s rock tendencies with a more symphonic orchestral side to it. And it was all tied together by particular similar themes or concepts, hence a concept album. But what many people wouldn't know is that before that, they started out as a more blues and R&B band, doing covers of certain blues songs by American blues songs in particular. But it was this album, Days of Future Past, where they actually took a bit of a radical change of direction, and it was quite a revolution. But I'll talk about those particular albums down the road. Today we're actually looking at a very different kind of album by the Moody Blues. One from the mid-80s. One where they try to go a more synth-pop approach. And that album is called The Other Side of Life. Beginning the album is Your Wildest Dreams. Not to be confused with Wildest Dreams by Asia or Iron Maiden. Your Wildest Dreams. Completely different. Now anyways, this song starts off with a very slow, very synthy intro. Almost like an orchestra in a way. It does kind of call to mind their more orchestral symphonic roots, if I can actually call it roots. And then it goes into the typical 80s synthy, I guess, synth prog kind of track. In terms of its lyrics, it goes from the point of view of someone who's yearning for love, always thinking about the person they love and wondering if they're thinking the same back. It definitely reminds me of a bit of Forever Autumn, which the lead singer Justin Hayward also sang in, which is actually kind of fitting, if not probably coincidental, maybe. Some of the lyrics themselves do also have a bit of that kind of fairy tale-ish quality with verses such as Once Upon a Time, The Universe is Ours. And the bassy kind of synth definitely reminds me a bit of the Genesis and Alan Parsons project of that particular era. And this song was actually considered, while some they've dismissed it as just an 80s pop track, this was actually kind of a big single for a while. Probably the first they had in a while since Nights in White Satin, and that was back in like 1967. So like 20 years or so. Next is Talking, a much more shorter, definitely more bouncier, poppier track. The lyrics here kind of speak more about communication and just blabbering on, and how sometimes we just want to just kind of block it out and just listen to music and enjoy it and not just get bogged down in mindless, boring conversations, which I think many people can relate to. The symphonis is definitely catchy, and it has a kind of does have something of a choir to it, which is a neat little flavor to the song. And I think like Your Wildest Dreams, this should have deserved to be a single in some way. The next song, Rock and Roll Over You, is definitely an underrated one in my opinion. Its music gives off a kind of 80s sci-fi action kind of vibe to it, almost thriller in a way. His lyrics have that kind of carefree attitude, like I'm not gonna break. I'm not going to care. I'm not gonna be swayed by what you say or think about me. I'm gonna listen to my rock and roll and I'm gonna walk over you. Almost like boots are made for walking in a way. Its synth is also very catchy. It has very few lyrics, and most of them are like the first half of the track, and while the other half is mostly like synth in like a sci-fi soundtrack improv kind of thing. There's even a bit of a saxophone solo near the end until it all kind of jumbles and cuts up and it just kind of fades out entirely. This one's definitely an underrated song in my opinion. Definitely catchy and definitely worth something listening to when you're like riding on your car through the neon streets at night. Then there's I Just Don't Care. Carrying on the kind of similar carefree mindset from the previous song, this one is definitely more of a love song like Your Wildest Dream. This one speaks from the point of view of a person who's still compassionate, still devoted to this other person, and that they don't care about what they go through together, what other people will say. What matters to this person is that he loves this other person and he's dedicated to them, no matter what may come. This song's more softer, more of a slower, more mellow, and it's definitely the shortest song of the album at about 3.5 minutes. The almost ethereal synth in this song, as well as that kind of muffled guitar solo and those bits of organ parts sprinkled out, it definitely does scream 80s to me, and that's not a bad thing. I'm sure a lot of 80s music are good, and it does have that kind of camp to it in a way, almost. However, the next song, Running Out of Love, kind of performs something of a 180 in terms of its themes. This one feels more uncertain in terms of its lyrics, with I can't believe it's you, I can't believe it's me, or I don't know if it's you, or I don't know if it's me, or I can't believe, or I don't know if it's both of us. This has this kind of has this one feels like a subversion of the previous songs. While Your Wildest Dreams and I Just Don't Care about the expectations of love and relationships, this one feels more like the reality of being in such a relationship. How it feels like we don't know where we're gonna go from here. Are we drifting apart or not? And the music itself kind of gives off that kind of ELO vibe, which is kind of probably coincidental since this came out the same year as ELO's Balance of Power, which is an album I might also talk about down the road. Although I do suppose if they really are running out of love, I just wonder why not just go to a station and refuel it. Anyways, side 2 of the album begins with the title song, The Other Side of Life. Definitely the longest track of the album, at nearly 7 minutes long. Musically, this song is more what I would call a synth prog kind of track. It has a kind of almost 80s-ish typical kind of intense, kind of moody atmosphere in a way, but still upbeat just enough, almost like rock and roll over you. The atmospheric nature of it also reminds me a bit of Dire Straits, particular the song Private Investigations. Lyrically, it also kind of fits into that kind of mood and atmosphere, painting the scenery of this lonely couple wandering through the streets near the dead of night, and just visiting these bars and clubs and all sorts of weird, almost shady places. It I don't know how else to say this. It as the lyric said, they step into the other side of life, almost if they're living double lives in a way. Like doing something they normally wouldn't do during the middle of the day, during the normal daytime lives. It has that secretive kind of vibe to it in that respect. Next is The Spirit, a more dramatic yet slightly more optimistic song compared to some of the rest. More like I just don't care. This was also the only song on the album to not be written either by the lead vocalist and guitarist Justin Hayward or the bassist John Lodge, but instead by the drummer Graham Edge and keyboardist Patrick Moraz. Much like Your Wildest Dreams, this song lyrically speaks from the point of view of a person trying to reach out and speak to the person they love. However, from some of its lyrics, I think there's a bit of a twist to it. It kind of, in a way, it kind of speaks from the point of view of someone trying to speak to their past loved one, someone who has passed away, as in the ghost of their loved one, or that they themselves are past and are the ghost speaking to their still living partner from beyond the grave, saying that they can heal. Do you know the way the spirit goes? As if he has something unfinished, something he still has something left to do before he's seemingly fit and ready for the afterlife. I think that in a way is up for interpretation. Then we have the penultimate track, Slings and Arrows. Musically, this one takes a bit more of a subtle influence from 1950s rock and roll, rockabilly kind of songs. Almost as if as a way to give a little callback to their earliest roots of being a mid-60s R&B mercy beat kind of band. Who knows? Lyrically, this song kind of shows how life always changes and never stays the same, and how the metaphorical slings and arrows kind of represent the risks and the potential dangers we'll eventually have to face in the real world. Kind of captures that reality hitting you in the face, like running out of love and whatnot. However, this also has a bit of an optimistic twist in that having trust and faith in people, your loved ones, your friends and family, if you have those, you might be able to find a way through in life. And I think with many songs on this album, this is definitely one that many would definitely relate to. We close out the album with the finale song, It May Be a Fire. I would compare this song to Two Suns in the Sunset by Pink Floyd from the Final Cut album. This definitely seems like the right resolution to this album regarding its themes and concepts and its overall musical tone. The synth bass line essentially has that hopeful vibe after all that has come before it. And lyrically, the reoccurring phrase of "it may be a fire, but you gotta let it into your heart" could mean many things. A fire is both a good and a bad thing. A fire can bring warmth and safety. It can also bring pain and destruction, which kind of represent life and all the actions that come out of it as a whole. And how we gotta let it into your heart, you have to be brave and embrace life as it is. It can also represent a companion in a way. How in a cold, almost unforgiving world, there's always hints of warmth to find, and it's always important to reach out to those. And in a way, the two sides of the album kind of polarized in a way. The first side, the side A, kind of seems more pop side in a way, while the second is more dramatic rock kind of way. And this does definitely close that off. especially when it ends with the awesome guitar solo by Justin Hayward. I think it's Justin Hayward, I'm pretty sure, but that guitar of his definitely gently weeps all throughout to the very end as it fades out, and it's a beautiful closer of a track. I love it. So overall, The Other Side of Life by the Moody Blues is definitely another one of those underrated albums, especially from a band as already as somewhat appreciated as the Moody Blues. It may turn off those who prefer more orchestras and dramatic rock guitars and all that, but I think this get still definitely maintains the strengths they're really good at, being their 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 static, their eccentric melodies, their beautiful lyrics, and just being simple and catchy overall. If you're a fan of the Moody Blues or just want to get into them, this is definitely worth an album listening to and checking out. Next time, we give ourselves a little bit of faith by taking a look at an early album by The Cure.